Hello and welcome to the third webinar in a series to introduce educators to the new middle grades and high school teacher preparation standards for science in Michigan. I'm Darcy McMahon, higher education consultant with MDE. Today, I'm joined by a team of science educators and teacher educators who were all part of the stakeholder committee who revised these standards. Today, we will hear from two colleagues from the authoring committee. The first is Marcia Fetters, a science teacher educator and associate dean and director of teacher education at Western Michigan University. We will also be hearing from Brian Hancock, assistant professor of education at Alma College, where he specializes in science teacher education. The purpose of today's webinar is to ensure educator preparation providers build understanding of the faceted nature of the teacher preparation standards for science for middle grades and high school and the implications for programs. This work supports the MDE plan and vision set forth in the Michigan Top 10 Strategic Education Plan. This plan lays out a vision for every child in Michigan's public schools. There are three facets identified as critical for well-prepared beginning science teachers. These three facets work in a braided fashion simultaneously, and ideally would be developed in this way in programs as well. As a refresher, the three facets of science teacher preparation include science teaching practices, core knowledge for teaching science, and guiding principles for science teaching. In this webinar, we will focus on the core knowledge for teaching science facet. You can see here the definitions of each facet. The science teaching practices are what teachers do to teach science. The core knowledge facet is carefully aligned with the NGSS, the Michigan Science Standards, disciplinary core ideas, but with a deeper understanding of that particular content. It also includes pedagogical content knowledge, pedagogical knowledge, and understandings of students. Finally, the guiding principles are the how teachers are or their way of being. They are intended to be a guiding framework for the thousands of decisions teachers will make in classrooms and with others. Here you can see the 8 practices, the 6 domains of core knowledge, and 5 guiding principles, each delineated.
The core knowledge for teaching science facet is aligned with the 2020 NSTA teacher preparation standards and the upper elementary Michigan teacher preparation standards for science. Core knowledge is more than just content knowledge and is ideally integrated throughout a candidate's entire program. It includes content pedagogy, classroom environment, and the professional knowledge and skills needed to foster a science learning community. One of the most efficient and effective ways to do this is by integrating 3-dimensional learning throughout programs. With the content aspects, it's also critical to focus deeply on the particular content that science teachers need to fully support student learning. As you may recall from the first webinar, there are 6 domains of the new science teacher preparation standards. These 6 domains come from the core knowledge for teaching science facet. This facet is defined as the fundamental concepts, principles, and processes of science. This facet also includes how students develop understanding of key scientific and engineering concepts and the various approaches to representing these concepts, principles, and processes in ways more likely to support student learning in a safe environment. As you can see from on the right, the 6 domains exactly match the 6 elements A through F of the core knowledge facet. This facet is defined as the fundamental concepts, principles, and processes of science. This facet also includes how students develop understanding of key scientific and engineering concepts and the various approaches to representing these concepts, principles, and processes in ways more likely to support student learning in a safe environment. Let's take a deeper look at the three core knowledge elements of content pedagogy, safety, and content knowledge. Content pedagogy really targets the final aspect of the core knowledge of facet definition, the various approaches to representing these concepts, principles, and processes in ways more likely to support student learning in a safe environment. This is the most complex, longest core knowledge facet element and represents what candidates need to know and understand about best pedagogical practices in the classroom. As you can see, this is the bulk of knowing how to teach science. It is drawn exactly from the NSTA teacher preparation standards and our upper elementary science teacher preparation standards. It is intended to prepare candidates to engage students in all three dimensions of Michigan science standards and next generation science standards. Content pedagogy includes aspects of implementation of engineering practices, assessment strategies, technology for teaching, and interdisciplinary nature of science learning. As an example, in the first element of content pedagogy, candidates will need to know and understand how to use phenomenon to engage students in doing science. Just what are phenomena? How do we define them in terms of content pedagogy? This short video describes how phenomena can be used to anchor science learning for students.
Phenomena are really key in NGSS. What we really are after with NGSS is helping kids connect what they're learning about the science to what goes on in the world, not just learning in the abstract. And by phenomena, we mean what is it that's happening in the world that we need our science to explain? Or what is the problem in the world and what aspects of the problem in the world are we trying to engineer or change around to solve some problem? So rather than just learning about science or learning to do some engineering, we're trying to figure out how to connect that to something important in the world. And we call the thing that's happening that we want to understand or change the phenomenon. Well, phenomena are very common in science classrooms because we always like to take ideas and see how they play out in the real world. But I think one of the biggest shifts in NGSS is really using phenomena in a different way, using phenomena as the starting point, using phenomena to raise questions so that we build the science knowledge or work on engineering problems in the context of trying to understand or solve a problem. So rather than teaching the idea first and then giving the phenomena as an exemplar, we often start with the phenomena because that is the thing that we need to explain. That is the thing that motivates the knowledge that we need to figure out. And that is the thing in the world that directs the knowledge building that we need to do. So rather than learn the science and apply it to the phenomena, we often want to start with the phenomena that we're trying to understand and build the science knowledge in order to make progress in modeling or explaining that phenomena. Maybe continuing to return to the phenomena as we make more and more progress and build more sophisticated versions of that understanding. So they're not something we bring in after the fact. They're something that we thread through and become the context in which we're applying the science knowledge as we're building it. The whole idea of NGSS is to make learning more meaningful for kids by engaging them not just in sort of the bare facts, but what are the big ideas behind those facts, and not just in sort of learning about facts or ideas that other people have figured out, but by engaging in the process of figuring them out themselves. And with help, of course, from teachers. But that process of figuring out makes what we're building in the science classroom much more meaningful for kids.
Safety is of the utmost importance to new science teachers. Again, these elements mirror the concepts of the NSTA 2020 Science Teacher Preparation Standards. Safety, health, and student and teacher well-being All must be considered. While safety really sits within the core knowledge for teaching science facet, it is also an area that cuts across all three facets. In the guiding principles, candidates must consider the needs of the whole child, and in the science teaching practices, candidates must practice mindful strategies for creating safe places for science discourse and sense-making. To help our candidates plan for classroom safety, here are some resources available to instructors and candidates to support planning for classroom lab safety that are available from Flynn Scientific.
Specialized content knowledge is specific to what science teachers need to know and understand about science to teach it well. It is not limited to pure content knowledge. As can be seen here, there are several other aspects candidates must know about science, including the nature of science, the three dimensions of science, understanding about how science meaning is constructed by students over time, and how concepts build, how these are and should be represented in standards and instructional materials. These topics are drawn exactly from NSTA teacher prep standards and our upper elementary science teacher preparation standards. It is intended to prepare candidates to fully engage students in all three dimensions of the Michigan Science Standards and NGSS. It is critical that candidates have a deep and rich understanding of the content itself. Specialized content knowledge, number 5, is critical for science teachers. It requires a depth of knowledge and understanding of the major concepts, principles, theories, laws, and interrelationships across disciplines needed to support planning, instruction, and assessment. Specialized content knowledge, number 5, gets matched to the practice of engaging students in sense-making and the guiding principle of community knowledge building to become Standard 6.5. Standard 6.5 gets applied to each discipline where teacher candidates should experience sense-making and community knowledge building around various phenomena and problems. Key questions include processes of modeling, explaining, or arguing, and are intended to lead teacher candidates in building collective understanding. As you can see here, candidates at each grade band must build understanding in each of these disciplines. These questions should be thought of as guideposts or assessment boundaries. They are tightly focused on the content that middle grade or high school teachers need to know to teach science. These examples are pulled from the high school science teacher preparation standards. As you can see, all of the expansions starting on page 15 in the high school document and page 16 in the middle grade document. We recognize that content courses are typically not just for teacher education candidates. How can and does the integration of science and engineering practices help all students in content courses? It would be easy to divide the core knowledge facet between colleges on campus using traditional boundaries. This approach runs the risk of not providing candidates with the depth of understanding they need about nature of science, cultural norms and values inherent in science, or the historical development of scientific ideas. Candidates may miss the opportunity to explore how a science community works together across disciplines to build knowledge and study complex situations and systems. They may experience only small slices of the work and study of science. Our campus structures often silo us into departments. K-12 students are now or will soon be coming to our courses with an NGSS framework of thinking about science and learning about science. This is an opportunity to explore the possibilities of working across colleges, divisions, and/or departments to more broadly consider how to support all students' science learning.
We acknowledge that individual courses are going to be challenged to meet all aspects of the standards as they push traditional views of separate discipline-based silos of science and what it means to teach science. Supporting this understanding of science cannot simply come together in methods courses, but must span the entirety of a program. Some of the shifts called for by the new standards include a blending of content and pedagogy, a shift to three-dimensional knowledge focus, and the need for three-faceted performance expectations. These new standards provide an opportunity to strengthen the science education community across our programs.
Thanks for your interest in learning more about the Science Teacher Preparation Standards. As a reminder, here are some key resources upon which the standards development relied if you'd like to learn more. All can be accessed in the resource materials that partner this webinar or in the appendices of the standards documents. This webinar is part of a series introducing the standards for the preparation of middle grades and high school science teachers. You can access all 4 webinars on OEE's YouTube site. You can also find slides and recordings from the MSTA 2023 Symposium, where there were several panels and keynote speakers who discussed the new standards and their implementation. Thank you so much for watching this webinar today. We invite you to share your feedback at the linked survey or using the QR code on the screen. Please also follow the Office of Educator Excellence on social media and subscribe to our newsletter, Educationally Speaking. And please do send any questions or comments about these standards and their implementation to me at mcmahond2@michigan.gov. Thank you.